Hello and welcome to this lecture. This is going to be a conceptual walkthrough of AWS Identity and Access Management, IAM. IAM is the most important AWS service that we need to understand if we want to do the hands-on lab or if we want to understand the concepts that we are going to explain in this course. Anyone who ever wants to work on AWS will need to understand IAM thoroughly. It can be a very complicated topic, and if understood properly, it is a very simple, straightforward subject. And that's how I see it. So to explain IAM, I would give an example. It could be a funny example to many, but this is how I actually see it. And to understand this concept, I think it is going to be a very befitting one. So imagine you're the main caretaker of a zoo. Yeah, a zoo. There are various animals, cages, sections, areas of the zoo. It's a big one. And on a daily basis, a lot of people are coming in. There are visitors, doctors, the vets. Then there are some who are doing cleaning activities. And so on and so forth. There could be various kind of people coming in, right? All sorts of people. My question to you is, how do you determine who gets what level of access? Can a visitor get entry into the lion's cage? Can a doctor who treats tiger can also treat snakes? So there are many such possibilities, and you need to determine as to how will you differentiate between the various level of access that various people need to have. So one of the solutions is we could give a permission document to these people. A visitor would get a very simple permission document to visit these areas, these cages, and not to get into them. A doctor would get, a lion's doctor would get. So you're getting that, right? So everybody would get permission document accordingly. And that's exactly what happens in case of AWS IAM. It works with policy documents. So you can either create a user or a role. Now I will explain it very simply that a user is created if you want to give access to one of your team members or to a person. And that person gets a policy document, that permission slip, which has very clearly defined as to what all resources it will get access to, what all actions it can perform, and what is the effect that is on those resources, whether the person is allowed access or denied access. Simple. A role is created when one resource needs access on another resource within AWS. So in zoo parlance, the people who are feeding these animals, they're also part of the zoo. They're living inside the zoo. And so somebody who is feeding the lion needs access to lion's cage, right? So one resource needs access to another resource because he needs to feed the lion. For that, a role is created, again driven by a policy, where resources, action, and effect are defined, there is something else which is mentioned, which is called trust relationship. And on trust relationship, it is mentioned as to who is the principal, that is, to whom does this apply. In the example of zoo, it applies to the person who is feeding the lion. Now, there are two kind of policies. One that is applicable to users and roles, and second, which is directly applicable on resource. And that is why the names are the way they are. That is identity-based policy and resource-based policy. So identity-based policies are the policy documents that are applied on users and roles. Resource-based policies are the policies applied on resources directly. So imagine a scenario wherein there is a particular area, section of the zoo where one needs to be more careful than other places. And on the entry section of that area, it is very clearly written, only people above the age of 18 are allowed. So what is happening here? This resource of zoo, this part of zoo, is defining who will get access, right? And what all can be done here. This could also be defined. So in the same way, for example, an S3 bucket where we actually keep objects, S3 bucket can define as to who all can access an S3 bucket and what all actions can be performed. Simple. So AWS identity and access management is a very simple concept, but a very important one, a central service to anything that we do on AWS. And if we do not understand this right, we are going to struggle. And that is why I try to simplify this with the example of zoo. I hope that made sense. And please write me if that was completely out of line and it didn't make any sense to you. But this is how I have always seen AWS with the jungle of services. It can be really confusing. And if we get IAM right, we get it spot on. That's it for this section. We'll do hands-on and we'll understand it more. Thank you and looking forward to seeing you in the next lesson.